What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. We've got a big show for you here today, a critical show as we transition away from the people's panic meter, the coping corner, all of that, into the fantasy playoff trust meter. Justin Boone joins me to break down a ton of situations and players that fantasy managers are questioning. Can we trust this player? Can we trust this offense as we head into the postseason? We've got backup running back rankings. We have a ton of content coming up with Boone later on in the show, but before we get to that, we've got to recap Monday Night Football solo style here on the show. Chargers 22, Eagles 19, and I cannot perfectly describe what happened in this football game tonight. This was a sloppy, messy, perhaps shameful at times performance in this football game. What a mess, bro. What a mess of a football game in this one here. The Chargers and Eagles go to overtime, and they win through the Chargers in overtime on an interception by Jalen Hurts. And there was a ton of turnovers in this particular matchup. The Chargers got 4 picks on Hurts. Justin Herbert threw an interception. There were fumbles lost in this one. I believe there were ultimately 8 turnovers. Were there 8 turnovers in this game? It was a complete mess. It was a complete mess in this game. Okay, so yeah, there were 2 fumbles recovered by the Eagles, 1 fumble recovered by the Los Angeles Chargers. So if I can do math there, that's 8. Gross. What a mess. It was an insane. Oh, I love it. The OC did it again. Yeah. Look, we'll get to the Eagles in just a second, but this was a wild game where neither offense really covered themselves in glory here. There was a ton of messes on both sides, but I do think we have to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers first. We always talk about the winners first here. And look, this is probably the best I will ever feel about a quarterback when they come out of a game with 139 passing yards, completing 12 of 26 passes, and being sacked 6 times with a 59.6 quarterback rating. That is the best I'm going to ever feel about a quarterback performance where that is the stat line. Because, man, Justin Herbert, what a gutsy performance by a guy who was banged up all throughout the game. Obviously, he has the left hand. He had surgery on it here. We're showing the stats about pressure right now. Ben Solak from ESPN notes that Justin Herbert ends the game with a 68.3% pressure rate, the 6th highest in a game over the last 10 seasons, according to Next Gen Stats. Herbert scrambled on 19.5% of his dropbacks. He took a sack on 17.1%, only 64.4% pass attempts. It's the lowest of his entire career. So it was just a wild one. Highest single game quarterback pressure rate faced this season, 68% tonight for Justin Herbert, 63% for Shedeur Sanders against the Tennessee Titans. You don't want to be in the Shedeur Sanders zone if you are Justin Herbert, but that's the state of this offensive line, man. I don't think I was going to feel good about either team. Whoever came out of this one, I wasn't going to be like, all right, well, cool. We're marching on to the playoff, boys. And I certainly don't feel that way about the Los Angeles Chargers here. They have their strengths. Again, they have a great quarterback who I think has to just be completely exhausted coming out of this game. A guy who played as well as you possibly could imagine here. 66 yards on the ground as a scrambler for Justin Herbert here. 6.6 yards per carry. And like those were all impressive runs from Herbert tonight where it's an option play. He kept it on a couple of those. So not, I guess those were not technically scrambles here, but and not all 6 of them. So impressive night from Herbert as a rusher. He leads the team in rushing. He had surgery a week ago. And he's leading the team in rushing. In the last 20 seasons, quarterbacks who have completed under 50% of their passes, had fewer than 150 passing yards, were sacked 7+ times. They're 0-14. Justin Herbert is the first such quarterback to win since Charlie Batch in freaking the year 2000 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's what I'm saying. Anytime a quarterback has fewer than 50% completion, 150 passing yards, all that type of stuff, fewer than that, bunch of sacks, whatever, I'm always going to be like, my God, that quarterback played so poorly. I do not feel that way about Justin Herbert. I thought this was a fantastic game from Herbert here tonight. Not perfect, not flawless. I'm not going to say that, but still a very impressive performance here. Herbert was pressured on 71% of his dropbacks where he held the ball for 2.5 seconds tonight. That offensive line is a wreck, and they got more injured during the game. Trey Pipkins, the longtime starting right tackle, or not supposed to be the starting right tackle, but he has started a lot of games for this Chargers team because of he used to be the starting right tackle, and now he's been starting because of injuries. Because, my God, that's been the theme of the Chargers season on the offensive line. He gets banged up in this game, and Hart's got to come in there. What a mess. What a mess this offensive line is, man. And it really ruined the whole night. I think, there was a lot of talk about the Chargers receivers weren't getting separation, and certainly when they were throwing down the football field to Ladd McConkey, you didn't see a lot of separation there. Cooper DeJean is an incredible player. He's been primarily the Chargers slot corner. The Eagles slot corner. Ladd McConkey was in the slot on 58% of his snaps. He owned a whopping 54% of the air yards in this game. There were not a lot of quick hitters for Ladd McConkey either. And I think that's a little bit of a Greg Roman problem too. Like anytime you get a Greg Roman offense, and I think at times Greg Roman's got a little bit too much flack from the smart football bros on the internet. I do think he does some things well as a play caller and play designer, but man, anytime that offensive line gets into disaster territory, I don't think he's got the tricks in his bag to necessarily adjust to that. I'm not sure that I feel great about the Chargers coaching in this game in general. I thought it was very conservative from Jim Harbaugh. I understand your quarterback's hurt, but some of the fourth down decisions, some of the ways where they just were not maximizing. Ladd McConkey is a quick separator, getting some yards after catch from some of these players like Quentin Johnson, Oronde Gadsden, any of that. He just didn't see a lot of it. It felt like long developing deep pass routes here for a team that absolutely cannot protect. I mean, Justin Herbert being pressured on that many dropbacks when he's holding the ball for 2.5 seconds. Why the hell is Justin Herbert ever holding the ball for 2.5 seconds? At some point, you have to, obviously. But time to throw in this game, 3.37 for Justin Herbert. Some of that is because he's under pressure, because he's scrambling, because he's trying to readjust. So maybe there just was nothing you could do with this offensive line, but you got to figure something out, right? At some point, you have to figure something out, and I don't think they had a lot of answers here. So Chargers receivers definitely gloved up in this one. At this point, we're past the point where Quentin Johnston is like a main deal factor in this offense. I mean, he's a useful. He's ultimately gone from being one of these guys that was awesome to start the year, and now he's just kind of back to what I imagined he would be coming into this year, which is like a useful wide receiver 3, and like not a fantasy wide receiver 3. He's a very volatile if you're starting him wide receiver 3 in fantasy, but from an NFL team building standpoint, I think that's where he is right now. So there is some flaw certainly in the way this Chargers wide receiver room it's built. It's good enough, but it's not really the type of unit you need when the offensive line is in this state. So down the stretch, the rest of the way, Chargers pass game is certainly going to be difficult to trust. They get the Chiefs in week 15, the Cowboys in week 16, and the Texans in week 17 before finishing it with the Broncos in week 18. We need like an intervention. The government, someone needs to intervene on Justin Herbert's behalf. Week 17 against the Houston Texans with that offensive line. I mean, help Justin Herbert, somebody, please. Let's talk about the running back room here, because this was a big story from a fantasy football standpoint. Amarian Hampton comes back, and it was an even split between Kimani Vidal and Amarian Hampton. Kimani Vidal had a 50% share of the team touches, as did Amarian Hampton. They both touched the ball 15 times. Vidal played more snaps, and he had more opportunities in this game, I think, at one point, because Amarian Hampton, there was so much pressure right up the A gap in this game for the Chargers. And one of those plays where there's just a free rusher coming up the middle, Amarian Hampton, he's right there. He needs to stonewall him. He needs to protect Justin Herbert in that moment. He gets completely blown up. And then Herbert gets rocked, of course. I believe that might have been one of the fumble plays for Justin Herbert. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but it felt like after that we didn't see Hampton for a little bit, and then he got back in the game, especially once it got into overtime, and he was the guy around the goal line. Inside the 5-yard line touches, those all went to Amarian Hampton. He had a 67% share of the inside the 10-yard line touches. Kimani Vidal had a 33% share. So I do think the final stat line for Vidal looks better because of that one one catch and run 60-yard play, but it was pretty clear to me Hampton being back made a difference. As a receiver, he did only caught 2 passes here, but one of them went for a touchdown, and he certainly brought a little bit more pop as a rusher. Again, I'm not going to say it was perfect here, and I certainly don't know if I feel great about Amarian Hampton as an every week fantasy starter as a running back 1, definitely a running back 2, but as a running back 1 with the state of the Chargers offensive line, that's going to be a little bit difficult for me to say that's a full trust situation. Nevertheless, excuse me, I think that definitely it was a good thing to have him back in that moment there for the Chargers. The Chargers win dropped the Chiefs playoff odds down to another 10%. It's getting late early for the Kansas City Chiefs, that's for sure. Okay, so that's the Chargers. Definitely an imperfect game, that's for sure. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles here. Oh boy, that was ugly. I think in a season of low moments, this was rock bottom for the offense with the Philadelphia Eagles. And man, it's getting worse, right? Like they don't have answers, man. I don't even know what to say. I really don't even know what to say. And it's like we can sit here and say Cowboys are somewhat alive here with the Philadelphia Eagles losing this game. They get the Raiders next week, though. Like the Cowboys do need the Eagles to lose out. And I'm not saying anything, can happen here. But that Raiders team really going to beat this Eagles team? I don't know about that. That would be like digging deeper than rock bottom here if that was to happen. But anyways, the Eagles, man, it's getting worse every single week. As I said, they have injuries along their offensive line. Obviously Lane Johnson's not playing. That's a part of it too, but the interior has not been good all season long. Landon Dickerson got banged up again in this one. That's obviously problematic. And it's just like, if this team doesn't have the best offensive line in the league, they're non-functional. Hurts has 7 giveaways in his last 2 games. He had 7 total giveaways in his previous 26 games combined. It's just trending so poorly here. Saquon Barkley had a long run that was a vintage Saquon Barkley type of run. He had that early in the fourth quarter, 52-yard run that makes the final stat line look really good. And like he did have overall had some pretty solid runs. There's no doubt about that in this game. That being said, it wasn't the most successful Eagles run game. Like they cannot just lean on teams with the running game. They had a 29% rushing success rate in this game. That was between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is not that type of team. That's with the running back runs only. Not the type of team that it was last year, but at least they got that long Saquon Barkley run. That was really good to see, of course. But man, it's just, they're not the team that they were last year where they can have this just, we do whatever we want run game. Good luck, throw any front at us and we can just push it right back. I thought Troy Aikman did a good job identifying like some of the missed lanes that Saquon Barkley has had. Not missed lanes necessarily, but like there's a cutback where he can push it into space, and he always hasn't been at his best finding those. And then again, the offensive line's taking a huge step back, and the passing game is just, it is a disaster. It's a disaster. Jalen Hurts, if you start him in fantasy, and I started him in one of my guillotine leagues and I'm out. I got eliminated not just because of Jalen Hurts, but my God, if I had even a normal quarterback performance from Jalen Hurts, I'm moving on to the next round. I'm not getting chopped, but I am definitely getting chopped in this guillotine league because of that Jalen Hurts game. 4 interceptions. It just was a complete disaster. AJ Brown has 100 yards in this game. It's got to be the worst 100-yard game you've ever seen in your life. A lot of drops, missed opportunities at the catch point. It's just one of those, like, people do this in football, right? Where they want it to be one thing. It's all because of this. It's all because of that. It's everything, guys. It's everything. Jalen Hurts is playing poorly. The skill position players, I thought Devontae Smith was playing great football, and I still think he's playing great football, but you can only get like one guy activated in this offense, and if that guy's going to be A.J. Brown, like that's not going to happen for Devontae Smith. He comes out of this game with 4 catches for 37 yards. 28 of them came on one play late in the game, so that's just the way it is. Like the skill position guys aren't playing to the height of their powers as they were last year. The offensive line's not what it was. And this coaching staff, they do not have answers. Like it's so beyond over for whatever Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo are putting out there right now. And I just don't think it's going to change. period. I'm not waiting for some like moment where they're going to turn it on or they're going to figure it out. I'm sure they'll, have their way with the Raiders next week. Okay, big whoop. They got Washington the week after that. Like, they're going to win those games most likely. I mean, my God, they put what they did on film today, and maybe they won't. They got the Bills and then the Commanders again in week 18. It's just such a mess. And the Eagles are, just going to continue to say they're going to evaluate everything, whatever. Keep evaluating. You're not going to find answers. And in fairness here, for calling balls and strikes, the Chargers defense is particularly a bad matchup for what the Eagles want to do well on offense. They play all that dime. They play all that zone coverage. They drop guys back. They do some of the simulateds that the Eagles and Jalen Hurts are not good at identifying and picking up. I think it was a uniquely kind of bad matchup for the Eagles passing game. But what matchup is good for the Eagles passing game when it's in this state right now? I don't know. So the answer was not, just get the ball to AJ Brown on inbreakers. They did that tonight. Like, come on, like, expand your brain here a little bit. It's not like one thing that is holding this offense back. It's truly and completely everything. So I think, look, the Eagles will probably make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to lose out and the Cowboys will win out or anything like that. I think ultimately Eagles will end up winning the division. It's most likely going to go that way. They have a 92% chance according to the Athletics model. I think they end up winning the division. I think we see them in the playoffs, but I think this will look like 2023 where they get into the playoffs and I think they lose in the first round. That's the type of team that we are seeing right now from Philadelphia. And I feel pretty good about saying that. Right now they'd be the third seed. If the season ended today, they'd be behind the Rams, they'd be behind the Packers. And yeah, I think both of those teams are absolutely better than the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And we're not doing them obviously in the trust meter segment with Boom because we recorded that before the game, but I don't trust this team at all. I don't trust this team to not have another bad performance here down the stretch. Two good matchups coming up, Raiders, Commanders. That's going to make you feel better from a fantasy standpoint, but even still, can't trust this team right now.